The 26,000 pastors is down with them to help with civil unrest, and if anything popped off, you know what I mean, in terms of all of the stuff they were talking about they're trying to do. Brother Ray Hagins, Pastor Ray Hagins was allegedly down with that. To show you how close it is. Why do you think all pastors and all of these people are also Freemason brothers? Because that's the hidden hand, the unseen aspect of that. Because people, when you think and you bring up Freemasonry and oh, you know, it's just extra conspiracies and things like that, but you gotta understand, everything works in a hierarchy, just like I said, and in the angelic system that these people base their systems on, they're basing it on what these fallen ones have done. And in their system, the hierarchy is what fulfills and passes the message, right? And so nothing has changed in that, especially those people who've emulated that system to create control over the so-called world as we know it today. So definitely these books basically definitely get into the roots of the Moorish Empire in America, as well as how much sway we have or had over here during those times or during those specific periods. You know what I'm saying? And the fact that the term European didn't mean what it means today. You know what I mean? Just like if I say you're colored today, we know that that color came into view through the Pleckler racial system that was initiated to denationalize Moors, take their lands, convert them to Native Americanship, which would make them foreign, and then give that regency or that agency that they had to now the white people who paid $5 to use that name to be able to take the place of that individual. Peace, Brother Xander L. said, just like when they used Michael Luther King to usher civil rights in, even though the civil rights were shut down by the Supreme Court in 1875. Exactly. And the Civil Rights Act that Michael was fighting for was not even called that. It was called the Indian Rights Act, because it was brought forth by the original Rainbow Coalition, which was the group of the so-called American Indian, i.e. melanated Moors, from America, who had unified as a political system party. So they used their agent to come in, co-opt the name, and then use it then to start to bring the LGBTQ people in, and then started to use the physical rainbow as the symbol of the shit. When initially it was about the original people. Look up the origin of the Civil Rights Act, of the Indian Rights Act. In the same year that Morocco as a kingdom is established, in which then they deny the internal or the external aspect of the Al-Maghreb al-Aqsa, which is us in the empire. So we was basically cut off from both sides and then herded into a whole new political system that did not have our position or our people in mind. Ushered in by people like Lyndon Johnson, who said that just give me 50 years and I'll have these niggas voting Democrat for 200. Right? So this is why nationality as an understanding or a deference between what is American and what is of the District of Columbia is never been satisfied, or has never been brought up or ratified by any of the original people. They've just gone along with the idea and don't really discuss that aspect of it. But that's one of the main reasons why we're in the situation that we're in. Because they adopted what they seen us doing, and then integrated themselves in because they had people that looked like us to help them do it. All these original people, at one point or the other, started out, well, all of these places on Earth started out as so-called melanated people. All of them. All of these countries, all of these regions. The problem is that we don't have any direct ways outside of trust names and stuff like that to go back and acquire that, those places that were set up in our names. That's why you can go to the gmiutility.org or I believe it's .org or .net and type in register with it, whatever, and then get your breakdown of your social security, not social security, your birth certificate number and these things that are listed and being used on the stock exchange as we speak. And why your bonds and shit will be in different names from different countries. You know what I'm saying? And all of that. But then you in debt here. And there's other people using that name, using it as collateral that are funded by the same government, by this same government right here. That's what's so crazy about it. Yeah, Putin got all of that over there because the Renaissance never hit that place. It was never hit with the Renaissance and the hiding of the racism and shit and all of that and the black icons and taking all that shit down. They never had to experience any of that. So they kept all of that. That's why, like, there was no slavery in Russia outside of what they did to the serfs, what they did to the Caucasoid serfs. But they really wasn't complaining about none of that shit up until the early 1900s when they started shipping them over here.
If you're a woman...
So, like I said, it was a concerted effort to disenfranchise us and take us away from our connection to any of the empirical data that allies us and links us not only to the landmass of our birth and forefathers, but who we are today and how we're supposed to be benefiting from that the same way that you have people whose families own territories and properties for hundreds of years prior to this, and they all living off their inheritance today. So it's the same way you could be doing it. But the only reason why they're able to do that is because you aren't or haven't been given the proper tools to do that, due to the fact that we have people who look like us that are doing dumb shit to throw people off of how it's actually done. So when you ask, well, why would they do that? They would do that because they want to keep the present status quo the way it is, because they descend from families that always did this. You understand? That was always fighting against the traditional Moorish Empire and those Moors who may not have been Moors as declared like that, but were still a part of the empire in terms of whatever national identity that they subscribed to. But they still was down with the national side of it, meaning the side of it that connected us all under the divine creed, such as the Bourbons and the Northumbrians and the Anasazi and the Algonquin and the Carthaginian, or you know what I mean, no matter what epoch of time you go through. You know what I'm saying? Well, they got chased out because the ones that was from across the water, the black European Moors from across the water, was the ones dealing with all of the sucker shit, all of the bloodletting sacrifice shit that we was stomping out. Like, people act like blood feuding and infanticide and fratricide. All of these things were products of a decaying moral, religious system that had initiated itself from time immemorial by using actual blood. You see what I'm saying? An actual strife to bring about the aperture of these otherworldly entities to feed, and thus then give them ancient secrets or let them know where some temple or whatever shit was buried that they could use to bring forth their energy in their personal life as well as in the physical world. You understand? The song I got called Super Heru, I said they taking their oaths to ghosts. That's what they doing. So the ancient flags of Morocco. The red has considerable historical significance in Morocco, proclaiming that the descent of the royal Alawite family of the Prophet Muhammad via Fatima, the wife of Ali, the fourth Muslim caliph. Red is also the color that was used by the Sharifs of Mecca, right, and the Imams of Yemen, right. From the 17th century on, the Morocco was ruled by the Alawites, the whites, the white people. See, Alawites. That's the white that they keep talking about when they say, oh, well, to be white, you have to be of original peoples of North Africa. Those were the Alawites, the whites. The Alawite dynasty, the flags of the country were plain red, see? But in 1915, 2 years after, the Prophet established the temple. Remember, temple been proper since 1913. That place over there didn't become Morocco till 1956. And it says here that they didn't even have the red flag with the red flag with the green star on it in between this time. But we know that the Prophet had that right here at Chicago, at Mecca, Chicago, during that time period, and established the so-called Moorish Temple of America, Divine and National Women, with that, showing you where it originated and then where it was trafficked to. Islam, Jay, he said in the Holy Quran also. That's right. During the reign of Mulay Yusuf, the green interlaced pentacle, it's actually a pentangle. Yes, that's right. And actually a pentangle was added to the national flag with the seal in the center remained in use, but only inland. See? So only those who were from the actual land were supposed to have that flag, showing us what? It started from here, started from the bottom, now we're here. Prophet brought it back out. The Prophet was the one who held it in unit, reinvested it in the American populace and the social strata. And then it wasn't until 1956, see what I'm saying, that it was then what? Adopted by the kingdom. But it was always supposed to represent those who were from the inland. Its use at sea was prohibited. So what does that mean? It can't be used. This flag cannot be used under admiralty jurisdiction. You understand? So if you're flying it on the land, you're supposed to be a manifestation of that which is Morocco, the Maghreb al-Aqsa, right? On the land, which is here, which is where you are. Not, which means that it falls under the law of the under the law of the land, from the soil. As they say, feet to the land, to the soil itself. Not the admiralty beyond the sea, cess do we trust, 70 jurisdiction shit that comes from an admiralty. That's why this flag was never supposed to be flown on the sea. But only inland. Its use at sea was prohibited. When the independence was restored in 1956, it once again became the national flag. See? The red background on the Moroccan flag represents the hardiness, the bravery, the strength, and valor, while in green, the 5-pointed star represents Solomon's seal. But Solomon comes before Muhammad, right? Right? In terms of the biblical stories, right? One do come before the other, right? Okay, so by bonding this to the Solomon now, the pentangle to Solomon, let's read what it say. The green, see here, calls it a pentagram. But it's actually a pentangle. The green pentagram or pentangle shown on the national flag of Morocco is often called Solomon's seal. Its origin might date back to where? The Babylonian Empire of 2000 BC. So now we went from Muhammad's time to Solomon's time. Now it's taking us from Solomon's time to when? To the Babylonian Empire. which is about 2,000 years. So when the Moors say that the red flag with the green star is over 50,000 years old, you see, we not lying. Y'all niggas just don't know y'all history and where these ensigns and the difference between a flag, an ensign, and a banner and these things are. But why would you? Because that wasn't your culture. That wasn't what y'all was dealing with. That's what we was dealing with as Moorish people who actually created these types of systems to be able to interplay with each other and deal with international commerce. Why would you know what the difference between a flag, an ensign, and a banner is when your people was basically scavengers, you see what I'm saying, who was basically living in wiki-ups and teepees and stuff and living off of animal hide year round, year in, because you didn't come from a civilized culture like that. We did. And that culture was assimilated. We'll see. Look, Solomon's seal. Its origin might date back to the Babylonian Empire, 2000 BC. The pentagram might be represented by what? The goddess Ishtar, assimilated by the Muslims to Fatima. Now, what did we just say? What did we just read here? We just read what? That the red is the color that was used by the Sharif Mecca Imams. Boom, boom. Oh, wait. Here we go. Red has considerable historic significance in Morocco, proclaiming the descent to the royal Alawite family from the Prophet Muhammad via who? Fatima. So Fatima is then Ishtar. You see what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying? It's hard. So we have the front face of what the stuff represents, and then we have the back face of what it represents as well. The church, the state, the inner sanctum. Ishtar, assimilated by the Muslims to Fatima, the prophet's daughter. On the Moroccan flags, the pentagram represents the link between God and the nation. Remember that Islam is the official religion in Morocco, and that the king, descendant of the prophet, bears the title commander of the believers. Until the independence, it was limited as a national flag in the French zone, see, and was also used as a national merchant flag in Tangier. So up until the French initiated it in 56, when they said that they reissued it, right? When they restored it, when they took it out of storage, now they annexed their new history to the old history. You understand? Granada was a totally Islamic city with the most personnel of its own Islamic machinery and administration of local government still imposed. The continuity, between Nasrid Granada and Granada after 1492 was considerable. We have a list of those who held office in the first any tournaments of Granada under the Catholic monarchs. You see? So it never fell. It just went into a reorganization where they took the old millennial kingdom of the Moors that shut down Rome and reincorporated it into a new version of Rome, but kept all the mechanisms of what made Granada as the center of the world at that time and left it in place. The Castilian orthography does not always permit us to reconstruct the Arabic forms, although often it does, but there can be no doubt that this is no rump of the disreputable collaborators, but in the municipal senate of the weight and authority. Islam? So you understand what I'm saying? The surrender of Granada was literally just that. It was a surrender. It was not a defeat. They didn't call it the defeat of Granada. And they said that the Moors were conquested, right? But the Moors did not. What they did, based upon the selling of the kingdom through El Zagal, which we'll jump into in a second, they reorganized it and put it under this new version, which was really the old version. We're under right now, the stuff that's happening and all the shit you see happening, it's our system still. They didn't have their own. They could not create their own in enough time to train their people how to be under it. So they had to adopt it and then just put a different color of paint on it. Have to be a certain way around Moors, that they would literally cut your head off and keep it moving. And everybody would see the head on the ground and know, oh, this nigga disrespected the Moors or done something to dishonor the, like it wasn't even a question. Abdemet El Chorat, Qadi, Mohammed El Pequeni, El Motanensin, El Afalaki, Yusuf El Mudehar, right? These are all so-called Spanish people who are supposed to be white with all Moorish names because the Moors fell to their own light-skinned children who happen to have a predilection to have sex with enslaved white women. Right? But look, what is an Alcalde? The Alcalde, the administrative traditional head of a town or village in Spain or in areas under the Spanish control or influence. The title was applied to the local government officials whose functions were various but always included the judicial element. The types of Alcaldes were differentiated according to the specialized nature of their judicial functions. Look, what language is Alcalde? Alcalde, or judge, an administrative judicial head of a town or village in Spain or in areas under Spanish control or influence. The title was applied to the local government officials whose functions were various but always included the judicial element. Alcalde also means mayor or Moors. Because in order for you to have jurisdiction in the Spanish government, you had to be an Alcalde, which means you had to be a Moor. Even after Granada fell, because we was the only one that knew how to run everything. These niggas didn't know how to run it. And they followed the same system over here. Yeah, Alcalde, that's the name of the Moors who were running shit here in America and in any place that was Spanish, because anything that was Spanish was Moorish territory. And that's how everybody looked at it. Just with a new veneer on it. We're just going to call it this now. Alcalde or Alcalde rule, the nature of local government in Spanish and Mexican California. Because remember, the term Mexico comes from Mexica, and that means Moorish. Doubtless the most important single officer in the administration of the local government in California, both before and after the American conquest, was the Alcalde. This magistrate, who was a part of the time-honored governmental system of the Spanish colonies, was an adaptation of the Arabian and Moorish Alcalde or Alcalde or village judge. The practice of selecting an Alcalde remained in some towns in Spain after the Moors were expelled. That's it. You see what I'm saying? You couldn't run nothing in Spain, New Spain, which was the new Moorish Empire, without an old Moor doing that, whether you was Catholic or not. Which means the empire did not fall, it was surrendered and then reorganized into this new version of what it became now. Because when the United States ended the wars with Spain and all of that and agreed to pick up all of the treaties that existed, that Spain was obligated to, that Britain was obligated to, that France was obligated to, they then all fell back under the jurisdiction of us. Which is why they could not use the red flag as the flag to represent admiralty. It could, when it was flown, it was always flown to represent those of us that was in the kingdom, that was in the empire. See, the flag of the Spanish conquistadors, the flag of the crown of Castile on a red flag. Look at that. That would be like That would be like, think about it. Like if Russia tries to invade the United States, that's a red, white, and blue flag country trying to fight a war against a red, white, and blue country. You see what I'm saying? Why would you invade them and then use the same color that they use to represent themselves if you wasn't trying to shroud yourself and put yourself inside the grandeur that their society and their culture had established for you? All lines up with what we just wrote, what we just said. And the office of the Alcalde was in every state in the Union. In the research that I've done on it, every state in the Union had an office of the Alcalde.